Whoa! This is my second favorite time of year. It is time to get patriotic. I love it. Pardon me. Too much karaoke yesterday. All right. Why is this my second favorite time of year? Because America is amazing. We're the most generous, helpful, hardworking, highest achieving, liberating country in the history of the world. What do you mean by all that, Craig? Well, America is generous. It is always among the top nations of the world for donations to charity, if not the top, depending on maybe how many taxes people have to pay. If they have lower taxes, they can afford to give more to charity many times to still be able to pay all their bills. Always among the top. We send out more missionaries around the world than any other country. You think India does more than America? No. England? No. Germany? No. China? No. In 1948, the Soviet Union shut off West Berlin. They closed the gates to the walls all the way around this country. Look it up if this is a new concept to you, a new history. And they were trying to starve out the Americans, the British, the French, and the free Germans that were in Berlin, West Berlin. So, United States, along with some of our allies, we started flying planes over, and we're dropping packages of food and supplies to keep those people alive and functioning. So after 8 months of doing that, some planes crashing and loss of life while we were trying to help these people out, the Soviets finally said, all right, reopen the gates and let people get back into Germany. So we saved the people in West Berlin. Whenever there's a major disaster around the world, a hurricane or an earthquake or some other terrible disaster, who is it that sends big Navy ships? It's the United States. Why do we send Navy ships? They have hospitals on board so people can get treated. Most of them have helicopters so they can ferry supplies over to where people are that are stranded and need food and water. And they can pick up those hurt people and bring them back, pardon me, to get helped by the doctors and nurses. And they also have generators where they can link up to the local power supply and provide power until things get stabilized again. Also, many times there's a disaster like that. After the ships go in, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers can go in and help reestablish things like water supplies and turn back on the power. Like several islands in the Caribbean have had problems. In the last 10 years, the Army Corps of Engineers is a good outfit. Also, Americans are hardworking. When unleashed, we have created more goods than any other country. For example, in the early 1940s during World War II, we had to make a bunch of planes and trains and planes and ships, guns, bullets, tanks, and rifles, stretchers to send them overseas to our guys who were fighting to win the war. And when that happened, it was mostly during a time where most of the able-bodied men were overseas, and so this was women in the workforce, older men, younger children. They were doing all the hard labor here at home to help the warfighters overseas. Currently, millions of Americans work hard, sometimes 2 and 3 jobs, and work overtime to feed their families, pay their bills, and make ends meet when need be. Our country's economy leads the world because of hard workers and smart workers, despite only having about 1/24 of the population of the people on Earth. We got some hardworking people. For all of you hard workers out there, great job. Thank you. Keep it up. We have some of the highest achieving people on the planet as well. Besides the hard workers, there are inventions galore that were made in the United States. Like the cotton gin, which revolutionized the cotton industry. Automobiles. Thank you, Henry Ford, and your assembly line. Electric light bulb by Thomas Edison. Where would we be without light bulbs and lights? Telephones. The internet was invented in the United States. Personal computers. Microwave ovens have saved many people many millions of hours cooking and keeping people fed and nourished. Thank the Lord for William Carrier, who invented the air conditioner. Ho, 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 ho. I've grown up in Oklahoma, and today's a good day for air conditioning. Thank you. Oh, man. Global positioning satellites were invented in America. First for military use, but now anybody can figure out where to turn. Most of the time, if your little device and app is on top of the game and knows where to go. To find out where you need to be. Hearing aids were invented in America. Thank the Lord for that, so we can continue to communicate with people as they become more seasoned. Cochlear implants are like hearing aids on steroids for people in worse shape. Zippers were invented in America. 3D printers, which those are becoming more and more popular and more widespread. Electric guitars. Any fans out there of rock and roll country? There's some rock bands, some Christian bands also use electric guitars. And one of my favorites, the airplane, the Wright brothers. As for high achievement also, 12 Americans have walked on the moon. No one else from another country has done it. President John F. Kennedy in 1962 or 3 said, here we go, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. This is the determined spirit that Americans show century after century. This let's go attitude is what helps us achieve what other countries can't or haven't. We're the drivers of the world. We are blessed to have oceans on both sides of us to prevent invasions from happening easily. We're blessed to have so many natural resources here and have waterways, highways, railroads, pipelines, and airports to move those resources to where they need to be. And why are Americans able to invent so much? Because our Constitution is unique in the history of the world. It doesn't limit what the citizens can do. It limits what the government can do. So we have freedoms. We can sit around and watch TV all afternoon. I can go to a ball game. I can go play pickleball. I can go on vacation almost whenever I want if I can get off of work at the proper time. And nobody's going to ask me for papers at the border, the state border, going to Kansas, going to Arkansas. Papers, please. That does not happen here because we are a free country in most regards. It's amazing. I'll stay up late all night and watch TV with the lights on, and nobody will come knock on the door. What are you planning in here? Are you doing something against the government? It does not happen here. We are freer than that. As far as the most liberating country in history, how many people have Americans liberated over the hundreds of years? Easily 500 million with a B. 300 million people alone found freedom once the Soviet Union fell in the early 1990s. It didn't fall, it wouldn't have fallen if it weren't for the United States. Another 200 million people were freed that had been under Nazi and Japanese rule during World War II. So when we took out those two countries, freedom was abounding in Europe and Asia. 3.5 million slaves were freed by Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s. It was 1863. And millions of other people have been freed in smaller countries as well. So we are so blessed here in America. Whenever you complain about something small to someone around you, say, first world problem, that can put things into perspective because we're in the first world and so many others around the world have it worse off than we do. Trust me. As my pastor says, lots of people here in the United States have a house just for our cars, let alone for us. A garage. So we were blessed to be a Christian nation from our outset. Without the great awakenings in the 1700s and 1800s, where the gospel was spread all around the United States, the as far as it had spread at that time, we wouldn't be a free nation. Without the guidelines that were adopted by those mindsets from the Great Awakenings, the Constitution would not have been written as it was, and we would not be a nation at all right now. At least not a free one like it is. France had a big revolution not long after ours, but they didn't have a Christian mindset over there. Many people there were hung that had been in power, and individual rights weren't protected. So we are unique in the world, have so many rights. God's providence has helped us. He's provided so many miracles over the centuries. George Washington's life was spared many times before he became president. There's a movie coming out right before Independence Day, Young Washington, about his time when he fought on the side of the British in the French and Indian War, where he was in a band, I don't know how big it was, a brigade, a battalion, I don't know, British soldiers that were being attacked by American Indians. And the Indians were picking off all the officers with their sharpshooters, and they never could hit George Washington. After the battle was over, he had several holes in his coat, and he had several horses shot out from under him. The Indian chief that was attacking the Brits at this point, and George Washington, he was watching Washington not get hit when all of his men were shooting at him, and he finally said, "Quit shooting at him, because the Great Spirit apparently wants to keep him alive." And he told him so when he met George Washington decades later after that battle. George Washington also fell into a frozen river. There was a hole in the ice, and he fell in, and I believe it was his brother that pulled him out. And he didn't get hypothermia and die, and that was a miracle because they're out in the middle of nowhere. So God wanted him to stay alive and run his country. When he was general of the American Army, the colonial army, he lost several battles. It was amazing that we won that war. But we finally turned around and beat the best army in the world, England, in the 1770s and early 80s. One of those battles was at the the Battle of New York. The British had set up, and they were going to come in and sweep over the colonial troops the next morning. And a mysterious fog rolled over the island and the river, so all the Americans were able to get in boats and get out just before sunrise the next morning when the Brits came in and couldn't find any colonials. That was early in the war. That would have been the end of the war had that not happened. These miracles spanned centuries. The Americans overcame the odds and stopped the Japanese Navy cold at the Battle of Midway in June of 1942. We were outnumbered, and just the way the fight took place on the first and second day, we were able to wipe out the Japanese main carriers, and they turned around and went home. Watch the most recent Battle of Midway. If you want the details on that. And also on June 6, 1944, Americans were able to hang on and overcome incredible resistance by the Nazis at Omaha Beach on D-Day, saving that invasion. Thank the Lord, our guys hung on, and we had some destroyers. We were able to break rules and knock out German emplacements so our guys could move up the cliffs. Had Omaha Beach not gotten taken, we probably would have pulled back our troops and tried again the next year. And no telling what kind of weapons the Germans would have to throw at us before then. So, Alexis de Tocqueville, I hope I pronounced that right, was here from France in the 1830s, scouring America to report back to his government. And his quote was, I'm not going to use a French accent on this, "I sought for the greatness and genius of America in her commodious harbors and her ample rivers, and it was not there. In her fertile fields and boundless prairies, and it was not there. In her rich mines, M-I-N-E-S, and her vast world commerce, and it was not there. Not until I went to the churches of America and heard her pulpits aflame with righteousness did I understand the secret of her genius and power. America is great because she is good. And if America ever ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. So, the big guy wants us here for a reason. Part of that reason is to love one another as we love ourselves. What ways can we look at and do that better the people we know now and in a more widespread way? Each person has their own unique answer to those questions. So, happy 250th birthday, America. May you always lead the pack in hard work, generosity, high achievement, helping others, providing freedom, and loving God. So go out there and celebrate, live a free life, and spread the word of freedom to others. Happy Independence Day.